Well, welcome to How to Improve Your College Admissions Essays. The purpose of this is for me to give just some tips and advice about some stages of the college essay writing process that I believe are essential. These are tips, obviously, and these are for you to make your essay stand out. When I mean you, I mean anybody who's applying to colleges and writing essays. And I'm going to start off by saying that I'm telling you tips that are going to make your essays better. And there is no guarantee that this will get you into certain places. However, that being said, the essay is one of the most important aspects of the application process. It can make your application stand out, or it can cast doubts on your ability to think creatively or critically. So the essay is really an essential part. And a good student, I would say 99% of students who can get good enough grades and be in enough activities, right? But I think it takes a certain type of student, a student with forethought, critical thinking skills, planning, in order to create a successful essay. And that's what's essential. That's what colleges look for in the essays. They look for students to stand out in them and not just hide it and be like every other student. Because there's many people who are in Science Olympiad, there's many people who are in mine, but the real students can separate themselves out as unique in these essays, and that's why it's important to learn about it. Okay, the first type of essay I just want to go over the types is the personal essay. Now, whether using the Common App or the Coalition, each type has a personal essay that all colleges are going to read. And they usually give you a bunch of different questions, right, to ask, right? So they're going to be like, oh, pick one of these 5 questions or so. But I would say, as a suggestion, choose your own question prompt. There's always going to be one, I believe, on the Common App and most certainly on the Coalition. And the reason that choosing that is important is because it gives you freedom to write about more, and it's not going to constrict you, right? So when you're choosing other questions that are very specific and more general, they don't tend to be as creative. So that's why I would suggest creating your own prompt. And that can seem kind of daunting at first, right? Like, how am I supposed to be able to convey something if any question? But let me tell you this. What could you reveal about an applicant with the following prompt there below? What's your favorite superhero and why? Now, this is a very weird question you'd ask. Like, oh, what would listing what my favorite superhero mean about me, right? Because it's supposed to tell something about you. This essay is. Well, you think about it first. Think about what the purpose of the essay is. It's to get to know who you are, know what your values are, know what you think about. For instance, if you say, oh, I like Batman. Well, why do you like Batman? Well, I like providing justice for the world, and I feel like I don't really deserve the credit or something like that. It can really tell something about who you are as a person, right? Because not everybody has the same interests and the same, ideas as you do. By making your own prompt, you can really set yourself apart. And this is a very key aspect of the process in general. Now, the supplementals are questions that the colleges ask. These tend to be shorter, usually around 150 to 300 words. They can be very specific, such as this one from the University of Chicago last year. There's a limited amount of Madam Universe. How can Olive Garden, along with other restaurants and their concepts of food infinity, offer truly unlimited soup, salad, breadsticks, yada, yada, yada. Use your own method of analysis. Now, this is a really specific question. It's asking you to solve a mystery, this specific mystery. How do you describe this bottomless concept, right? And that can be really, that can put people in a really weird position. The essay should be really what you choose of it, right? You can choose this essay. It's really specific, but if you have an idea and you have a real curiosity for this, choose it. Some supplementals, however, can be very broad. This one from UVA last year. What work of art, music, science, mathematics, or literature has surprised, unsettled, or challenged you in what way? Now, this is very broad. It's just asking what has challenged you. I would recommend that you choose one that's more specific and that's one that's more broad, just to expand the possibilities, right, of the different of what you're presenting. You want to present yourself as someone who is really concerned and interested about one topic and who can think critically, and at the same time, somebody who can think generally, right? So I think there's a combination of supplementals and, common app like styles you can have, but I think in general, either way you choose, you have to be good at writing, which is what I'm going to get at next. Now, you have all these ideas, right? You've seen all these great essay prompts. You probably laughed out loud. It was probably very hilarious just reading the prompts. Now you're gonna actually write it. Now, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna just open up Word document, start, banging those pages out? No, that's not what you're going to do. I think the most effective way to write, especially like a long essay, like a 600-worder, like the U Chicago one, is to have an outline. Outlines are not used as often in high school. For what reason? I'm not sure. Basically, what they do is they lay out each individual section of your essay in a specific part. There's going to be a part for an introduction. There's going to be a part for a thesis. There's going to be a part for main ideas, commentary, evidence. For each and every single idea, every single sentence in your essay is going to be laid out. It doesn't mean it has to be the whole essay, but it gives you a roadmap. Now, it can often be unsettling, right? When you have a 600-word essay, right? You have to fill 600 words up. But when you do an outline, it actually makes it easier for you to just go, okay, I like this idea. Let me expand on it. Let me expand on this idea, right? It makes it much more effective and much more time manageable to list certain ideas out before, then go in and expand on those without just endlessly just start typing away and you don't know what direction you're going and such as something like that. And here's a template of what a general outline looks like. This is for a question. Obviously, this isn't for like a college application essay, but the idea is downloading music without permission theft, right? And this person went into detail into their argument. They have their thesis statement. They have one main idea, and the main idea goes on and on and on to multiple main ideas. But you get the idea. Each individual part is broken up. You see what you're looking back at. So for the first main idea, everything in that section should relate to that first main idea. You can build off of it, you can expand off it, but it's got to be related to that. That's the way the organization of it works. You can't have an essay that goes from one place to another place to, you're trying to impress somebody or whatever, but it doesn't work that way that you can just meander and not have any direction. The purpose of the essay is for you to organize your thoughts. And by doing an outline, you can organize your thoughts really well, really effectively. And I'll tell you, I was taking this course this summer, and we actually had to write outlines for every single essay we did. And the more I did it, the more I realized, wow, it's really makes it much more efficient to just use your outlines and use that effectively. It really concentrates your ideas, and it allows you to focus in on what you're actually arguing in more than actually just focusing on like, oh, I gotta stay on topic. No, outlines help with that. And I think it's a really effective tool for any essay, even admissions essays. Now here's an example of a weird looking prompt here. This is a common application prompt that a school received. It's called On Potatoes. And basically, the student went a little bit, it was a weird question, I'll just say. It was a very weird question. But there's actually some very important aspects of this essay. And this essay goes on much longer. This is like the first paragraph. There are like 4 more paragraphs. There's some things I want to point out about this essay that are actually very stellar. First thing, the applicant made their own question. You see, this is a common application prompt, and they just decide to make their own question themselves. If you had to choose one food to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be? And that's a very like specific thing, right? You're not, there's no room for like academics or research or anything like that. It doesn't seem like there is. So what's your favorite food? It's like a question you would just ask in regular conversation. But it actually is much more in depth than you think. Notice how the applicant used a lot of transitional words. Look at the use of language there. Must be considered practically. I realize that inquiry must be considered practically. Just that use of wordage right there. It's just demonstrating the student's thoughtfulness. It's demonstrating that the student has thought out, step by step by step, exactly what his argument is. And he says at the end, I believe that I have come to such a response, potatoes. And the wording that they use indicates that the student has thought about this. And that's a really important aspect of your essay. If you're just typing and you don't have any sense of direction and you don't have any sense of reasoning behind your answer, then nobody is going to be able to follow it. The way that this student did, even with such a weird prompt, and I'll give you a little bit of time to just read it a little bit yourself, some of these things, like yellow dye number 5 and copious amounts of sodium forever. It just elaborates on the fact that this student knows what he's talking about and that you see the clear outline of what's to come. And the result, by the way, the school was Johns Hopkins and he got accepted. So obviously, I think he did something right. The next step is the editing process. Now, when you're going back and you're looking over your essay, you have all this like a page of words. It's like a mountain of words sometimes. The editing process, in my opinion, is the hardest process. If you can go back and edit and look for exactly what you need to edit and get that right message just by looking at it and reading it, I think that's a very impressive skill to have. And when you're editing, you're not just looking for grammar and syntax, you're looking for meaning. What do I mean by meaning? You want to convey that you know something, you're passionate about this topic that you're thinking about. You're passionate about science, you're passionate about cooking, you're passionate about even eating potatoes, whatever it is. Take these 2 sentences, for example. I like to read about science. They're interesting and have cool topics. That's a general statement. I mean, it's definitely telling you what the reader wants to hear, that the person likes science and they have cool topics. But think about this next sentence, for example. Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of my favorite authors. His straightforward and thought-provoking explanations piqued my interest into astrophysics. What is the difference between these two? I mean, obviously the second one is longer. It has a better vocabulary. It's more specific. But why is it better? It's the principle of showing and not telling. The first sentence tells you. The second sentence shows you. The showing of interest is a key factor. You can't just tell the audience, the readers, oh, I like this, I like this, I do this, I do this. What is it that you do with it? What do you do practically? What do you do for fun with it? It's the idea of, and it's the concept behind it. It's not just the idea of, oh, I like science. You have to really show it. That's the difference. You can tell when somebody just shows that they are that they do community service a lot. You can just tell if somebody shows that they go and show up at a Science Olympiad tournament and show up there. It's a difference in telling it. But it's a difference. Sorry, before what I just said was telling. It's a difference in showing it. Showing that you have an interest is a much different skill. That's what the second sentence does. The second sentence shows interest in science. The first sentence tells an interest in science. There's a key difference, and I think it's a very crucial difference. when editing and looking at long and short sentences, elegant words and long sentences are fine to a certain extent. Why? You can't, when you go in and you want to say, oh, I want to impress the reader of what I know and my abilities. That's fine. That's fine that you want to impress them with your abilities. The way to do that, however, is not by having every other sentence be, dictionary.com, thesaurus.com words, It's not that easy to just go and look for synonyms of words that you're trying to find and then plop them in and try to assume that you are getting the same meaning or having the same impact. No. Elegant words and long sentences are more impactful as ornaments and not every sentence. What I mean by ornaments, I mean they are the sentences that you want to highlight, the sentences that you want to drive home. They're not the explanation sentences. They're not the first sentences. They're the sentences you want to set apart and you want to separate them, not actually by an indent, but separate them in their significance of message. That's the importance of long and short sentences. And I would just say often short and concise is better. When you're editing and you're looking for word count, short and concise is better as a rule. If you have room for words in your essay, go ahead. I wouldn't say add it. I would just say if it flows with the sentences before and after, it's fine. However, if you're short on words and you need to get that word count down, short and concise, always better. Here's a really good example of that. This is from an essay last year. It's about Haydn and how different interpretations of him were perceived by the student. And then notice how some of the sentences are longer, some of the sentences are shorter. Haydn's interpretation seems ahead of its time and calculated. Semicolon. It's bold, unique, and awe-inspiring. That's the message that the author is conveying, that the interpretation of it and the fact that it was calculated before its time and it was very ahead of its time is bold, unique, and awe-inspiring. And notice how it's just 3 different adjectives that describe that. Nothing much more. It's 3 adjectives that are able to describe exactly what the author intends for the reader. Even though it's surrounded by long sentences and in the time that people thought diseases were caused by sin and Haydn looked, it's very, I was surprised by how Haydn was able to intertwine science. They're surrounded by long sentences, but the main point is, it doesn't have to be, the main point can be short sentences or it can be long sentences, depending on how you use it. This student, what they did was they kind of used a mix in between, but when it actually came down to the point, that they were looking to come across with, it was these 3 adjectives, bold, unique, and awe-inspiring, that really set it apart. So different. When you're trying to look for a sending home message, make that sentence different than the ones before it. Whether it be long or short, short usually drives home the point more, and elegant and long and elegant can be very descriptive. But in this case, the short sentence right there really sent home the message. Now, just some final tips I want to go over. Don't beat around the bush, answer the question. If a question asks you, what's the story behind this event? When have you seen someone get discriminated? Don't try to beat around the bush and, focus on this other person. The essay is supposed to be about you. It's supposed to be centered around you. It's not supposed to be centered around another person. So don't beat around the bush. How do you feel? How do you get impacted by an event of discrimination or an event of community service, or time that you did community service or research or anything else? It should be reflective of your behavior. So you need to answer the question in your senses. The next thing, relax. it can be very hard, especially with a lot of essays to crunch through, not a lot of time, a lot of words, and it can be very, very stressful. However, I find that the people who are the most relaxed and are the most calm about this process are the ones who get through the smoothest, the ones who plan ahead of time, the ones who, think about this, not too much, but keep it in the back of their mind. That's when it's really successful. So as long as you relax, this process will be very smooth. There will be some nights where it'll be rough. I'll tell you that. October 31st, day before the Common App is due, not a very good time. Other than that, I would say just relax. And finally, be you. This process is about you. It's not necessarily about your friend. It's not about your grandma. It's not about your sport. It's about how you feel. You're going to college, not those other people. You are. And it's your application. So be yourself, and this application and this process will work just in your favor. Thank you so much. I hope you learned a lot, and that's all.